All right, so Strike Back season 3, episode 3. This episode, I feel like the most important thing was really, what we got to see at the end of the episode and certain parts in between. But Rachel kind of has PTSD. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's post traumatic stress disorder, and it's what people get, when they're in the army and they see people, die a lot, or things that you wouldn't see in everyday life. You just driving down the street, you don't see people getting shot up all the time, and people get that and they have to go through therapy, and it's a very serious process to have to deal with mentally and physically, because when you have a lot of mental problems like that and you're having night terrors and things like that, it can affect you physically. And generally when that happens, it's post traumatic stress disorder because it's after the fact. And she kind of has that, except she unfortunately is still in the war pretty much, and it makes it harder on her to deal with her task at hand, which you see from the very beginning of the episode when she basically pushes Scott and Stonebridge to kind of like blackmail this guy that they need for the information by telling him, if we put these papers on you, or if they find these papers on you, they'll go after your family. And they realize, like, we have to sit here because she won't let us leave. We have to get this information because they're listening to her, and it's like they're almost killed because of that. And you see her go through that, and of course we get the scene where she's alone, and she's popping like a lot of morphine pills, and based on the CIA director at the end of the episode, when he smells the mug, I'm assuming it wasn't exactly water. So she's popping a ton of pills, like she just did that when she just chugged them back, and then she's drinking alcohol with it. And then we see her like smoking through this whole episode. If you notice that, she's like smoking every time we see her, and she's kind of trembling in the part where she's talking to Kamali. And it's just interesting to see that. And obviously at the end of the episode also, when she has like all the pictures on her desk, you see how distressed she is after having to deal with watching Baxter be killed. And obviously what she wants more than anything is to see Kamali die. Like, she's doing her job, she wants to get Al-Zahari, but I feel like clearly the most important thing for her is to watch Kamali die, regardless of whether or not he's with the CIA, or regardless of whether or not he helped Scott and Stonebridge in the last episode. He is the one who killed Baxter, and that's in her head, and she also feels like she's responsible for killing. Excuse me, for getting Baxter killed, which she kind of is, because generally any problems that happen during a mission fall on the leader, and she's pretty much called out on it. Sorry, all the coughing and stuff. But she's called out on it when Scott, he basically says, you got Baxter killed, and now you're kind of going off, you're just losing it. You're going off the edge. And in the end of the episode, of course, she's interrogating the woman who unfortunately isn't Al-Zahari, which of course we'll get to see more of her in the next episode. And you could tell, even though I thought initially when they were going to show her she'd be all bloodied and beaten up, but she was just yelling at her pretty much. But she kidnaps her at the end of the episode, so I'm definitely interested in how that's going to play out. And of course, if you watch the preview, I guess spoilers, but not really, it was in the preview. She does pretty much torture her, trying to get all the information out of her. She waterboards her and stuff. And, you get to see a little bit more, of course, because it's a preview, we get to see a little bit more of, how she snapped. But, aside from that, one of the interesting things we got in this episode was the introduction of a new character, Weatherby. And I believe they showed him in the preview, but I don't think we really got to see too much of him, if they even showed him in the preview for last week. But before this episode started, they had like one quick scene, and it was the scene from the opening where he's walking out, and he reaches into his pocket, like his jacket pocket, and he pulls out, like the dead man switch, or I guess it's not a dead man switch because that's different. But he pulls out the trigger, and he's like kaboom, and he does it when he blows it up, and I instantly thought he's a cool character. I like him. And then when he does that, it's still a cool thing, and it's just like I saw him as like the character who murders, but he's like the evil character who, like, I have fun when I murder people, that type of thing. But he also seemed like he could be, really intellectual and smart. And generally, in this show, because everyone's doing something insanely over the top, everyone is, even when they're, having fun murdering people, they're still generally, you know, pretty calculating when it comes to them doing their actual job. And we see him go through. It was hard initially. I swear I couldn't tell what the heck he was saying. And like the very first scene, I had to rewind it. I was like, I gotta get close to the TV because his accent was so thick. I couldn't get it at first. But after that first scene, it was really easy for me to understand him. And what was interesting was when I first saw him initially, I thought he's like sort of the information broker type character. And obviously he does, certain jobs, but he's just like that lone guy by himself. But then they actually show a gay sex scene, which was really interesting because obviously they don't do that. Generally, every episode, it's Scott sleeping with some woman, which we still got. So it balances out for, I guess, any guys who are like, I don't want to see this. I don't know. But for me, it was just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. He's actually gay, and that played into the episode. It wasn't just like they just showed it because he's a gay character. They showed it because he has like this weird, like, sort of commanding type hold on his boyfriend. And like initially when he was talking to him, I thought he was just like because he gives off like random stories through the episode. I thought he was just talking to him, and at the end he says like, do you have anything to tell me? Initially, I thought it was just like he just wanted him to respond to the story he told him. But then when they go through the episode and Kumali's actually meeting with the two guys and he shoots his boyfriend, I was like, okay, he did that because he knew his boyfriend like slept with the bartender, and like he was really pissed off about that. And it was really interesting. He's kind of like, he's like a chauvinistic guy, really, because he was trying to pick up Stonebridge, and yet, he shot his boyfriend because he was interested in the bartender. And then, of course, he killed the bartender. I can't remember what the bartender said, but it was literally like one or two words, and he shot him and killed him. And then after he kills him, and of course Kamali's just like splattered in blood, he was like, I did that to show you how I feel about betrayal, which I thought was really interesting because I'm assuming, of course, he suspects something from Kumali based on the fact that he kind of jumped at him, like, I'll make it so that you can't work with Al-Zahari, ever again. You'll be doing nothing because you're just like a pencil pusher. Like, you're low on the chain pretty much. So it was an interesting scene, and, he shot his boyfriend, which I thought was like insane because I was like, I don't know why he just did that. And then, of course, they explain it. And, that kind of leads to his boyfriend actually turning on him. And I thought, of course, he'd know in the episode, and just some of the scenes made it seem like he would, like he had already picked up on it, like when they were in bed and he was like kind of brushing his back. The look on his face made me think he already knows something's up. And especially how the boyfriend looked when things started to actually go bad at the airstrip, or I guess I can't really call it airstrip, but the landing field. And he looked at him, and the boyfriend just looked insanely nervous. I was like, oh, he's about to get shot in the head. But none of that happened, and he went back to him, and he actually saved him out of the truck after, they had the whole little, car chase scene. And, he got him out of there, and, I guess they kind of just went home, and everything was fine between them. But I feel like that's going to come back in the episode, or, in future episodes, and eventually he'll actually get that, he betrayed him at that one point. But I love that scene, the whole airstrip scene. And it was cool when Stonebridge actually climbed up the little piece and broke it. I was like, okay. Initially, I thought, no big deal. It was kind of just it would be harder for him to get down, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Because I kind of thought they might have killed everyone at first, because it seemed like there were only a couple of people. Then they show like the whole construct, and I was like, oh, there have to be like hundreds of people there. And of course, the one guy finds the machine or like the box, and when Stonebridge is on the roof, he sees him, and then everything kind of goes wrong. And they might come back to this, but when Stonebridge fell through and after he killed the guy, when his arm was like burned up, it was like nuclear. There were nuclear warheads in there, and that was like acid or something. Obviously, burned his flesh off a little bit. And I think in the moment, a ton of things can like just whiz by your head, especially when you're actually doing a mission and it's not just like, oh, I saw this and then people were shooting at me. This whole time he's kind of going through, he has to do a mission. But I think in the next couple episodes that could come back, or he'll actually remember when I fell through the roof. I kind of broke one of the top of the warheads open, and it burned my arm. And it might just be a little thing where they have to find something, or they're like, well, where could they store these? And then he'll remember, and they'll go back to the airfield and try to collect the warheads or anything. But it could have just been in that one scene. But I feel like personally, it will come back later in the later in this season, and it'll play a pretty big role for the story because it's nuclear warheads. But overall, I really love this episode. I really like Weatherby. I think he's a cool character. Honestly, like the one scene when he just blows up the thing and he's like kaboom. That's my favorite scene out of the whole episode, just because it's like, I don't know why, but it just made him seem cool to me. And he's obviously like a really crazy character because it's more than just he has fun, killing people. He shot his boyfriend, and he was like, "You belong to me." Like that line, it's obviously very important if he said it that way after shooting his boyfriend. That's a pretty big deal when someone shoots you and says, "I own you." So that dynamic I feel will really come into play. And Rachel kind of going off the deep end is obviously going to be a pretty important thing for the rest of the season, and how she deals with Baxter's death. And who knows, we could actually see her end up going up against Kumali in the end if she feels like he isn't doing enough to actually help Section 20 get what they need and actually get Al-Zahari. If she feels like you aren't really doing enough, I'll just kill you for revenge, and then we'll get Al-Zahari, and I'll kill him for revenge too, or something like that. But the episode as a whole, I definitely loved it. Comment below, let me know what you thought of the episode. What do you think next week's episode might be like, aside from, well, I guess from what you got from the trailers, and just what you think period of what might happen in the season based on what happened in this episode or past episodes. So comment below and let me know. And it just popped into my head, the woman that Scott did end up sleeping with, at first it seemed really random. I thought it was like, oh, they just put her in just to have him sleep with a woman this episode. But she's obviously one of the people that I can't remember his last name, but the guy Victor from episode 1, the young guy who got shot up, his dad, he got information in the beginning of the episode. She obviously got a picture of Scott, and she slept with him, so that's obviously going to come back into play, if not next episode, which I'm sure it will, because they kind of have to have a random sex scene. But if not next episode, definitely the episode after that. And they're gonna have that sort of cat and mouse type game where Victor's father is kind of coming into play to try to kill Scott and Stonebridge for killing his son. So comment below, let me know what you think of that and everything else I mentioned, and thanks for watching.